Hello, hello. We are live, back in action here on Instagram for IGTV. We are going to be speaking to Marcia McLeod in another episode of Conversations with 𝗖𝗏, a segment that I created so that we can get deeper into the journey of the people not only living here in the UAE but across the world, how they have built their confidence and the journey that they're on now. So today I have got a very special friend and guest joining us. She's been living here for 21 years, has had children here in the Middle East, has been married, has worked, has had businesses, had children through schooling, and it's just going to be a fantastic conversation. So I'm really excited. Hello, thank you for joining. Hey, my business smart, you're back again. So yeah, it's fantastic to have people on here, just to hear people's stories, but also to really find out what it's like to live here in the UAE, what it's like to move countries and up and just be somewhere else. So whether you are looking to be abroad or just move from where you currently are, it'll be great. Hi guys. Oh, I see Calendar in the house. Hey ads. Please, if you know me, then please drop a hey down in the comments. If not, then I'd love to get acquainted with you. So please do feel free to let me know where you're from and what you're hoping to potentially gain out of today's live. We are speaking to Marcia McLeod, and she will be sharing a lot about her 21 years here in Abu Dhabi. She's always lived in Abu Dhabi, actually. That's one thing I can tell you. And I'm based in Dubai, which is another Emirates state. Hey, we've got London in the house, South London, whoop whoop, how you doing? And Marcia has now joined. So yes, in essence, you know, Marcia has been here for such a long time, and when I've come across people who live here for such a long time, it's people who do live in Dubai or have moved around across different Emirate states, but Dubai is not the capital, contrary to popular belief. There are 7 Emirate states, and Marcia is in the capital, which is Abu Dhabi. Oh, she's requested to join. Let's go live. And she's lived in the capital for the entire time, so it's a little bit quieter there compared to Dubai. But now Marcia is on. I will let her tell some more. Hello, we made it.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am fabulous. Thank you very much for asking.
Fantastic. We've got this all working out. So for those of you who were here last week or are just joining us for the first time, we are here in the UAE, and there are sometimes a little bit of restrictions with regards to online video calling and apps and such devices. So we're using a VPN to get around it, and it just means you have to bear with us just a little bit. So as I was telling you just before Marcia joined, this is the amazing Marcia McLeod, an amazing soul that I've been able to meet here about 2 years ago through a mutual friend. That was a little bit of a coincidence, but it's actually been a blessing the entire time, and we've kept in contact ever since. So I was so shocked to learn about Marcia's journey, and every time we talk about it, I am still in awe of her amazing strength over this whole period. But on Conversations with 𝗖𝗏 today, I would love to introduce Marcia McLeod, a purpose coach here in Abu Dhabi, and her journey over the last 21 years. So Marcia, please tell us a little bit about yourself that I haven't already said, and introduce yourself to the audience.
Well, hey everybody, thank you for jumping on your Sunday afternoon, especially if you're in the western part of the world, because I appreciate that you would take the time out to spend it with 𝗖𝗏 and I. As 𝗖𝗏 has said, I'm Marcia, and I've been here for 21 years. I have raised my family here, worked here, and have now begun an entrepreneurial journey, which probably started about 10 years ago, but now fully fledged. So I'm looking forward to being able to share with you today how that actually happened.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I mean, I've still got so many questions in front of me and in my head, but For those of you who, of course, are just learning about myself and Marcia, we also had a podcast that we started last year during the pandemic called Mind Over Matter Talks. And both of us shared quite a lot about our journeys and personal struggles, where we opened up about mental health. So we are going to be touching a bit more on that. But I want to start way, way, way back, just in case there's some people on here who, of course, wouldn't have known about the podcast and are meeting you for the first time. So,
Yep.
Marcia, please tell us what made you decide to up and leave. You were in London, right, at the time?
Right.
So 21 years ago, tell us a little bit about where you were at that time and what made you want to start afresh in a pretty much sandpit.
Okay. Great question. I was a single mother. I had a daughter at the time. She was probably about 2 when I met my then partner, and you know, the struggle was real, you know, and he came into my life, and you know, kind of a year and a half after we started dating, he had told me that he had an interview in the UAE. And so, of course, I'd never heard of the UAE, never heard of anywhere to do with the Middle East, to be honest. And I was kind of, you know, as I said, 18 months into the relationship, I supported him. I said, you know, go ahead, go see what happens. Never did I think in a million years that he would get the job and come back and then say to me, look, I want to go, but I'm not going without you. So either we get married and we all go, or I'm probably not going to go. So this was kind of the next stage for me. So we got married in 2000, and he actually left at that point to go and start the job and do his probation period. And then I followed in the August. So kind of my daughter finished nursery. And so it was a really smooth transition in that she was ready to start school. Mm-hmm. And the rest is history. You know, the plan was to come here for 2 years, and 21 years later, I'm still here.
You're still here. You know what? Just hearing you say the year 2000 doesn't even sound like that long ago, but we're in 2021, and exactly. 21 years, that is like a whole cycle of so much, which I know we're going to get into as we speak. But describe to us what it was like when you actually came, because you hadn't heard of the UAE. You've now got this job. You know, you've been presented with this opportunity to get married. That was a big decision for anyone at that stage to kind of decide, yes, let's get married and go. But at that age, at that time in your life, how did you kind of transition from, okay, let's get married and do this for this new job and this great opportunity, to actually getting here and seeing what you said yes to?
Honestly, I think I've always been someone who was open to possibilities. Okay, so it was not a difficult decision to want to move. In fact, I was happy to get out of London. It wasn't saying anything for me. I was happy for the opportunity.
What part of London are you from?
I'm from North London, so I'm from Enfield.
Okay.
And so, you know, I had gone through quite a lot prior to that, and actually was just happy to start fresh.
Right.
So,
right.
I suppose that's probably why I didn't ask too many questions. But then once I actually got here, I think I had a very rude awakening. You know, initially, you know, it was, you know, of course, my friends were saying to me, oh, it's going to be amazing. You know, you're going to be a lady of leisure, and you're going to be earning, you know, your husband's going to be earning tax-free salary. And yeah, it sounded great. You know, I'm just going to shop all day and have coffee. Well, no, that wasn't it. And after setting up home and getting my daughter settled in school and my husband was at work, then the reality kicked in that actually I don't know anyone. I don't have a life. I don't have a job. I'm here in literally the desert because there was nothing. So there was no mall, so to speak. It was just nothing. So then
I can't imagine what that must have been like. And I guess even for yourselves watching, the Dubai that everybody talks about and that you see on TV and what's in the magazines and what's on Instagram, and even Abu Dhabi, it's a beautiful city that's been built up, but it is a desert, like a literal desert. And so to imagine that this has come to pass in the last 50 years, which is this year.
Yeah,
you being here 21 years ago, can you describe to us what that even looked like? So you get off the plane and it's like, okay, this is your apartment, or this is your villa, or, you know, your hotel.
Well, initially, to be fair, when you got here, well, just to backtrack a little bit. So my husband came in the February. He did his probation, and I actually did visit in the May with my daughter.
Right.
So at that point, once his probation was over, we were able to choose our apartment, etc. So this gave me a real insight prior to moving. Okay.
Right.
But it was still the element of, oh, this is exciting. Right. Once I moved here, I think, as I said, the reality of things were done differently. Yes. Everything was painstakingly a long process. Right. Everything was paper. There was no such thing as doing things online. Right. You would, you know, just the process to sort out your documents would be, you'd go and you'd be told X, Y, and Z, and then you'd go back with X, Y, and Z, and it would actually be something else. And it was just very frustrating, you know, because of course I was coming with my Western mentality, and I kept on saying, well, it's not like this in the UK. It's not like this in the UK. But the fact is, I'm not in the UK. Yeah. So I had to quickly learn, if this is gonna work, I need to adapt. Yeah. Yeah. And so what did the actual city look like compared to what it is now? Of course, there's buildings that have come and gone, and developments that have come, which we all see, I suppose, living where we do live. But the rapid change, or even what buildings and hotels and stuff look like compared to obviously what you'd be used to coming from North London. Can you describe for us what that was? Very, very basic. You know, there wasn't many of these high-rise, futuristic buildings that you see now. They were, especially in Abu Dhabi anyway, they were much more sort of 4 or 5 story buildings. There was no underground parking. You just, it was, I mean, by comparison, I felt like I had come to somewhere that wasn't civilized. I don't know, you know, because I was comparing it to London. So London had everything. And then here I was now in a place that didn't even have a mall. Yeah, right.
And so what gave you the confidence and the drive to actually keep going day by day and year by year? Because at this point, you've realized it's completely different. You have made that move, but was there like a point at which you thought, okay, we're getting to the 2-year mark now, maybe it's time to go back home and just say, okay, we've done our time and return to the UK? What gave you that confidence to persevere past the 2-year mark?
I mean, honestly, after the first year mark, I actually wanted to leave. Right. It's the truth. And I secured a job before I left for that summer. And so because of that, it then meant I had a reason to return. Right. So I would say that after a year, my life changed for the better in that, because I'm not used to just sitting at home and not having independence. So once I started to work and make friends and earn a salary, things became a lot better. So, you know, time goes by very quickly here. So 1 year went into another year, and before you knew it, it was 5 years, and then I'd had 2 more children. And so you start to build your life. And actually it became home. I was happy here.
So at some point you sort of switched in the sense that, okay, going back to the UK was one thing, but then actually building this lifestyle. When do you think you started to enjoy it a bit more? And of course you had your children here. Tell us a little bit about what that was like, actually. Having the kids.
So my experience of having the children here was a positive one, and I can say that because obviously I could compare it to having a child back home, which also was a positive experience. I felt that the medical care was fantastic, and you know, I was treated very well. At that point, there was no private healthcare, and I think I paid something on the lines of £10 every time I went to my antenatal visit. I had my second and third child very close together. And so I still worked, but I was able to hire home help, which is quite common here. So that made my life a lot easier. You know, that struggle that I would have had back in the UK, no, that wasn't a reality for me.
Wow. Okay, so in contrast, although your wider network of the family wasn't here, you actually found it easier with childcare, in a way. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
100%.
That's really
And we made the decision to put the children in nursery quite young. So again, we were both working and we wanted them to have that interaction. So there were never children that just stayed at home. They were always, you know, kind of with other children. So that was important to us. So I think as time went on and as we had more and more visitors come, people would really love where we were living and the life that we had. You kind of started to realize, well, actually, why would we leave?
Yeah.
There's nothing to leave for. Of course, we miss our family and our friends, but we would always go home every summer. This was something religiously that we would do. And so we had the best of both worlds. Our family would come, we would go. Life was good. Life was good.
Fantastic. And so you mentioned earlier that your entrepreneurial journey started about 10 years ago. So what made you transition from having the job that you secured and the lifestyle at that time that was tax-free to moving into a more entrepreneurial journey? And what would you say that was like as a female as well, being here?
Well, first of all, I think, and I don't know if any of our listeners can relate to this, but I fell into the career that I developed here in the UAE. So I fell into teaching. I was good at it. However, I wasn't passionate about it. And so I don't know if anyone's ever done something and they're just coasting along, but they're not really happy. Well, that definitely was myself, okay? And I did teach for 14 years. I taught adults English. But something was missing. And I eventually got into network marketing around 2009.
Right.
And it was at this point that I understood that I was a natural leader. And so through that journey, I then went on and set up a image consultancy business that I ran from home, where I did people's style and color analysis. So basically, historically, every job that I've had has always been helping people. It's always been mentoring people. It's always been helping people to find a better version of themselves. And so there was a common thread. But I still hadn't found the thing. So
do you think you knew that at the time, or
no?
Do you
I
think
was definitely not
back
conscious
in hindsight?
No, hindsight, definitely hindsight. And so as a female, I think, contrary to popular belief, I think that women are highly regarded here. We are treated very well, or at least my experience has been that. And so I can't complain. I didn't feel that I was treated in any inferior type of way at all. If anything, I think I had preferential treatment because I am a woman. And so I would say that, in combination with where I'm from and having that red book, definitely opened many doors for me.
Well, that's the thing, actually, because yes, I'm based in Dubai, and having that red book, aka the British passport, which is now apparently going to change quite soon. But it definitely does afford you different luxuries here. And I've been treated very well whilst I've been here. And I think because you're British, would you say that was pretty much the basis and the foundation for you being the teacher, teaching people English?
100%.
Because you were... because you were British with a British passport, and that got you further.
That's literally, I can tell you that every job I've had has been given to me purely because of where I'm from. And it's almost a given that I will get that job. Right. And that's not arrogant. That's just, I know that the way that they respect you if you are from a certain country.
And I think it's also similar to say, and fair to say, even as Americans as well, there are many other different countries as well. So I'm not going to go into all of that. But, you know, there was a point, I think we spoke once, where you realized there was an influx of more English and British speaking teachers, because before that there was a period where you didn't see as many black people and you didn't see as many English speaking English teachers. But was that change? When do you think that shift sort of happened and there were more native English speakers coming?
That was probably around, I would say 2007, between 2007 and 2009, because there was a huge drive so at one point in the government schools, all lessons were being taught in Arabic apart from English. And so then they changed everything, because what happened, I teach in tertiary education, and so what happened is the children would graduate and they would come to me, and of course I had no level of English. So they would literally be going back to basics. Of course, this couldn't continue. So then they understood that actually it needs to be at grassroots. We need to bring it in at a lower level. And so the dynamics and the demographics of the teaching staff changed at that point. So they did that mass
if they were teaching everything in Arabic, where did your children go to school and how did they learn?
Okay, so that was government schools.
Okay.
That was government schools. So government schools are literally for UAE nationals.
Right.
For expats, you don't have that option. And so my children went to a British school.
Right. And it tends to be either a British school or an American school, or
sometimes a Canadian school or a Japanese school. You have schools now for every corner of the earth. But at that point, you know, for us as Brits, there was one British school. You know, it was there wasn't anything else to pick from. But of course, now there's a huge range. So it makes it a lot easier for people.
Right. And so for those of you listening as well, so I've been here 4.5 years, and I do know a lot of British or American teachers here, and they kind of have two different curriculums. So there'll be all types of different teachers, but sometimes teaching just the British curriculum in certain types of schools, and then the same goes for the American curriculum, and that's how it's kind of run. I don't know much between the government schools and the public schools and stuff like that, but you do pay for schooling here. It's not free education like the UK, unfortunately. But yeah, you do pay for a standard of schooling. And would you say that schooling here is equivalent to like private schools in the UK?
Yeah, they're definitely on par. And just speaking to my children, the elder two that have gone back into the UK system, whether it was college, university, have definitely said they felt that they were certainly at an advantage when they went back.
Right. And that's the thing, I'm glad you just said that, actually, because I want to kind of lean into this. We've spoken about third culture kids on the podcast, and I didn't even know that was a term or a phrase. So for those of you listening, third culture kids, and correct me if I'm wrong because I might not describe this properly, but third culture children are children who are born in a country that is not their nationality and not that of their parents. That's either. Correct. So in your case, your family's heritage is Jamaican. You were born in the UK, but your children are not born in Jamaica or in the UK, and two of them were born here in the UAE. So what was that like? Because I've actually met all three of your children, and I think they all have their own amazing personality and charisma. One of them, I think, is a comedian and needs their own TV show. No names will be mentioned. But they definitely have a flair about them. And I think, like many others that I know who have been born and raised here, or at least raised here for the last 5, 10, 20 years, they just have a different sort of worldly experience from being exposed to so many different nationalities. So can you tell us a little bit about that and how it was raising your children as third culture children?
You know, I never really saw it as a thing until we would go home for the summer, or we would have visitors. Then it became obvious that my children were different. Right. Because what I found was other people wanted to box them in. Oh, what's that accent? Or what? Where are you from? And you know, they come from everywhere and anywhere because they don't belong anywhere. You know, and they are just expat children. So that was the first thing. I do feel that, and these were some of the reasons I believe we stayed, because we understood that we were giving our children such a great platform to start their lives. We were giving them opportunities that we hadn't ever had growing up. and we couldn't see that there was anything negative about keep staying here, you know. And as I said, I feel that my children are very international. They are very open to traveling and experiencing different things. And when I compare it to children who may not have had or been afforded those opportunities, you know, it's very, very different.
Right.
It's very, very different.
Well, they've all got their own, you know, flair individually. Yeah. And I mean, that could of course happen no matter where they were brought up. But I definitely think that them being raised here has attributed to them having a different kind of confidence and having to just be themselves and own their identity. We were also fortunate enough actually to speak to your eldest daughter, and she was talking about, you know, her identity and kind of finding her feet and stuff like that, which of course resonated with a lot of listeners because this was on our podcast. Because, you know, when you're young and obviously trying to figure out who you are as a teenager, and then of course coming into young adulthood, your daughter at the time was 17. She left here and then moved back to London. What was that like as a mum? Let's go.
Okay, so just a little bit about myself. You know, I'm an only child from my mother, and I was raised very much in an environment where I wasn't really allowed to breathe. You know, I was my mum's everything, and so, you know, she kind of mollycoddled me. So I then had a very different approach with my children. So not to say that when my eldest daughter was ready to leave, that it wasn't difficult or I wasn't going to miss her, but I kind of at that point remembered when I was ready to leave to come here, and as much as it was painful for my mother, she never stopped me. She encouraged me to go and live my life. And so I just remembered that at that time, you know, we had been on our summer holidays. We'd come back, we'd had a fantastic time, and she just said, I can't stay here anymore. That's it, I'm done. She was in the middle of her A-levels, and I just thought, oh my God, you know, but in the pit of my stomach, I knew that if I don't let her go, it's going to be to the detriment of her. And I remember we sat down in a restaurant, and, you know, she was feeling bad because she was feeling that she's going to abandon her brother and sister. And I just said, look, you've got to put yourself first, okay? And whatever happens, they will get over it. And actually, I couldn't even go back with her because I had just been on the summer holidays, I've mentioned before. So I literally packed her off with 2 suitcases. And as you say, hope. And off she went. And she had to figure it out. And she did.
Wow. Wow. Do you know what? You guys just sound like this brave bunch, honestly, because I've met very few people who have, you know, come here and stayed the length of time that you have. There are, of course, people, but for one reason or another, whether it's university or job situations or whatever, they leave the UAE and they don't make it this far. But, you know, even your daughter just coming back and making up her mind in her teens to just say, you know, I'm leaving. Many people don't even leave home, you know, for quite a while when they are at home in the UK. And I think even as a British person myself, I was born and raised in West London and didn't leave West London until I came here. I moved out of my parents' house and I was living in Northwest London for maybe 2 years. And then from Northwest London, I jumped ship to the UAE. So I'm just so fascinated when I hear you talk about her, because I'm just thinking, gosh, at 17, that is so brave to just get up and have a strong mind and say, I'm going to do this, you know?
That's definitely.
So that is beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about your journey now, because of course you are helping women to find their purpose and to really dig deep and, you know, go forth into the career path or journey that they want to. And what is it that made you get to that point, and how have you been able to assist women today?
Okay, so I basically went through my own pain to purpose journey. And essentially that's how all of this came about. So as I mentioned earlier, you know, of course I was living that amazing life, you know, the life that everybody desired, you know, everyone told me, you know, you're so fortunate, you've got, you know, your
and it
family.
was great.
Right. But I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy inside. Okay.
Right.
And so it didn't matter what anybody else was saying. But then the guilt would come in because, of course, I should be grateful and, you know, all the other things, all the other labels that people kind of put onto me. And so I just shut up. And so this went on and
what
on
would
and
happen
on.
when you'd call home and tell people what you were going through?
People just thought, they didn't receive it. They didn't listen to me. It was like, you know, just get a grip. You know, you live in a hot country, you're earning a tax-free salary, you're married, you've got your family. Like, what more do you possibly want?
It's a problem.
And that literally was it. And so I just consistently came up against a brick wall and then started to question myself, like, well, maybe I do want too much, you know? I just want to feel fulfilled. That's it. And I'm not finding.
And of course, your husband pays for everything, and your kids are in a different school.
Right.
What are you complaining about?
Exactly that. So this went on and on and on and on until literally I hit rock bottom. I just fell into a real bad depression because I just felt like no one was listening to me. No one could understand what I was going through. I couldn't seem to articulate it. And so it just became this vicious cycle. And
do you think you knew you were depressed at the time?
Yes, because I had experienced it before.
Okay.
After having my first child, I'd experienced depression. So I knew, but I couldn't get myself out of it. And I was just literally in bed. I can tell you, I stayed in bed probably for about 3 months on average. And of course I would get up and cook and I would function, but I wasn't seeing anyone. I wasn't going out. I wasn't being social. I had, you know, taken myself away from all of that. And it was bad. And then I realized that, well, if I continue down this road, it's not going to be good. So I have a choice now. It's either I do something about this, or I stay like this. And it literally was that. And it wasn't overnight. And then I started to journal, started to write down my feelings, and I also started to share what I was feeling to people that would actually listen. And what I did notice was that, and again, historically, if I look back, I've always done this. I've always inspired other people by speaking my truth or sharing my world. And so where I started to share more people that were in similar situations were also sharing.
Right.
And so I realized that actually it's releasing me, number one, but I'm also feeling joy from helping others too. And so that's how I kind of essentially went on to create my course, an online course, a coaching program where I empower women to find their voice and to find their inner strength and to be the best that they can be. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's kind of it. But it was a journey, and it's still a journey.
So sorry, I love this because I do know some of this already, but even hearing you talking about it again, I just think, what was it like going through that here compared to, of course, if you were back home in the UK? How did you find perhaps reaching out to people? Because I mean, obviously now we're using Instagram and WhatsApp and all these things, but were you calling to speak to people back home, or were you seeking therapy like here? And just what was that like? Because you're now not, you know, just going down the road to your local doctor on the NHS. Do you know what I mean? You're kind of in a different space. So what was that like in the Middle East?
It was very isolating, actually, because the shame that goes with that. And for me also, I was battling with, on the outside, my life looked perfect.
Of course.
And so when you're telling people, actually, it's not perfect and I'm struggling, they don't believe you.
Right.
And myself particularly, I know I hold things together very well. So what you see is not necessarily a reflection of what's actually taking place.
Yeah.
So you can understand from an external perspective, no one would take you seriously, would they? Because you look fine. And this is the issue with mental health, which is why I feel so strongly about it, because, you know, people need to be heard. People need to be believed and to be listened to, because it shouldn't take someone wanting to take their life or, you know, doing something drastic before action is taken.
Yeah.
And I know I definitely, felt like that. I felt like I just wanted it to end. And maybe if I didn't have my children, or I didn't have that inner strength, because I don't know what it was, that one defining thing. Maybe it wasn't one defining thing. Maybe it was a multitude of things.
Yeah.
But I didn't give up. But there are many people out there that do.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And I think that, again, I just use the word brave because, being so far away from home, I remember before I moved, actually, someone actually said to me, they'd moved from India to Hong Kong and from Hong Kong to London. And I used to work in a corporate office, and my entire team wasn't from London except me. And I remember one of them giving me advice saying, you've lived in London your whole life, but when you go and you make this move, there are going to be days where it absolutely feels like the worst day. Everything that could go wrong is going to go wrong, and then some. And when you go to pick up the phone, you're not going to be in London. You're not going to be in the same time zone. You're going to feel like you want to quit and just book the first ticket home. But that is the exact day that you don't do it. Don't have the knee-jerk reaction. Don't have the breakdown. I mean, of course, express your emotions, but they were like, that's the day you keep going. And I remember at the time thinking, what kind of advice is that? Obviously, if it gets bad and I do need to come home, I'm going to come home. But it was actually great advice. And that's what I've stuck to. And I do reach out to family and friends, but that's now with WhatsApp, with Zoom, with VPNs, with Instagram. And I do get people often saying, oh, you look great. And, I saw you went to this thing and, brunch. And I'm like, some people think I brunch every weekend, and I really don't, okay? I don't, but it's the gloss of Instagram that makes you think, yeah, you're fine. I saw you smiling. Like, you don't even know the half of it. Do you know what I mean? And I can't even imagine what that must have been like for you 10, 15 years ago here without a fraction of this technology. So I really commend you on doing all of that and hanging in there with 3 children and a husband and a job and then a business, because it's a lot, especially even today where there are so many ways that we can communicate and we still struggle to stay on top. So what is that like for you now? What kind of ways do you look after your mental health, and do you, check in and cleanse? What does your mental health and your self-love regime look like now?
Well, one of the biggest things that I battled with was I was a big people pleaser, and I never put myself first. And I would say the major act of self-love for me right now is putting me first. And that's not easy as a parent because, there's that guilt of, especially the way I was raised and how much energy my mum put into me. I feel like there was a lot of pressure on me to be a certain way as a parent. But I understand now that I can be an amazing parent, but I don't have to put myself at the back of the queue, okay?
Absolutely.
I'm no good to anyone if I don't put my needs first. So fundamentally, self-love is the best love. Doing me and putting me first unapologetically is something that is not negotiable for me anymore. And alongside that, I do things to ground myself. So I meditate, I write in my journal. I'm also a Reiki practitioner. So this is something I do for myself and also can offer for others. So I've kind of found a routine that just works for me and keeps me balanced.
What is grounding? Can you tell us a little bit more about grounding? I do it sometimes with regards to having your feet on the floor and connected to the earth, but can you tell us a little bit more about grounding and your Reiki?
Okay, so for me, it's just balancing myself. So it could be in nature, it could be that I go and sit and put my feet in the sea, but it could also be that I'm just getting myself in a mental space that I'm ready to start my day. Because as you know, you could start your day one way and it could end up another way. So for me, it's important to start my day a certain way where I'm calm and collect, and I've spent 10 or 15 minutes just balancing myself and making sure that I'm ready for whatever, because especially for me in the last 6 to 8 months, it's been a whirlwind of things that have happened in my life. So if I didn't have these tools or strategies that I could lean into, I don't know what I would do. But that, in addition to, I feel where I have altered my mindset and my way of thinking, I feel the people who I've attracted into my life are very similar. So I've got an amazing support network as well. So I never feel that I can't be in my truth. If I'm having a bad day, I can call somebody and I can tell them, and I can be open and honest. I don't have to pretend, you know, and just make out that everything's okay.
Yeah. I love that. Actually, you posted something a couple of days ago on your story, and it was just that beautifully truthful point of which, look, every day is not perfect. Yeah. Even when you start with makeup and lipstick in the morning, it doesn't stay on because sometimes tears come. And it was so vulnerable and beautiful to actually see that. And you got quite a lot of people responding, didn't you?
I did. And this is what I'm learning more and more, that the one thing I was running away from, which was being myself, is actually the very thing that has opened the door for people to feel comfortable to come and speak to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of the fantastic tips that you've mentioned there, we've got 𝗖cie. Hey, 𝗖cie, thanks for tuning in again. You've mentioned that you need to do some of this more often. You were talking about grounding and meditation and starting your day right. And that's definitely something that I can agree with, because maybe for the best part of, I don't know, 5-6 years, so before I moved to Dubai, I have a morning routine. And honestly, I cannot recommend it enough. 𝗖cie and anybody else who might be wanting to start your day right. To be honest, it depends what you want for yourself. I wouldn't say it needs to be set in stone, but I read a verse of a Bible in the morning, more so for routine, and then obviously just having a clear point of direction for the day. And then I go into journaling and writing something that I'm grateful for every single morning. It's something different. It's not the same thing. Even if it is the same thing, I think, again, for the routine and the practice of doing it really helps me to start my day the right way so that I'm centered. I've changed a couple of times when I journal. So I used to write down something that I wanted to improve from the day before. And I remember actually a friend of mine came to see me here about 2 years ago and asked me, when was the last time I had written down my goals or reviewed my goals? And I was like, well, every year, you know, I write them down, New Year's, and I make this thing. And he's like, why are you reviewing your goals once a year? You should be reviewing your goals daily. You know, having something that you improve and work on daily. If something bad happened yesterday or there's a habit or whatever, if you're only reviewing it once a year, how are you going to know or remember or try to work on that? And that really struck home to me, because I was like, I'm doing this self-assessment, and he's like, babe, do it every day. And literally from that point onwards, so it's been about 2 years now, going forward and just looking at, okay, what can I do better from yesterday? What happened yesterday? Do I need to apologize to someone? Do I need to go fix something? You know, not to beat yourself up, but just in a reflection and a non-judgmental way of saying, okay, you know what, I need to do better in that area, you know? And first thing in the morning, your mind is clear. You haven't got all that other clutter and stuff going on. Your phone's not ringing and the emails and whatever haven't started coming in, you know? Even if they have, for me personally, I take that 15 minutes for me. So just like yourself, Marcia, listen, if my phone's ringing and I haven't done my routine, it's gonna ring. I don't answer it.
If you're calling Kai and she doesn't answer, you know why now. You know why.
Yeah, because at 7:15, like, what's going on? No. I take that time for myself, and it definitely is about the routine and the self-love. And I love everything that you mentioned in yours, because you have to. If you don't do that in the morning, you end up giving so much of your time and energy away to everything else. Your job, in your situation, you've got your children, you've got a household to run, you've got a job, you've got your coaching. And if you aren't centered, how can you go out and give that to your clients?
I can't give from an empty cup. And I realized that. And, you know, there was points where I completely depleted myself. I'm an empath. And so I absorb everybody's energy. I take on everybody's worldly problems. That's just who I am. And I can't change that. But I can alter and protect myself and set boundaries to make sure that, you know, I'm remaining balanced.
And do you think that has definitely helped in the area with your children? At some point, did you feel the mum guilt of, you know?
I feel it all the time. You know, please don't get me wrong. You know, I'm not saying I've mastered this. I have moments where I feel guilty, but then I talk to myself And I think, well,
Yeah.
you know, they're fine. You know, if I decide I want to go out for a few hours or I want to go away for a couple of days, like, they are fine. You know,
Yeah.
they're not gonna crumble to pieces. So yeah,
And
but
it
it's
is
helped
talking
for
to
sure.
yourself. Do you talk to yourself often?
Yeah, and it's not a sign of madness. Yeah,
It's
at
not.
all. Contrary to what we have been taught, it's good to talk to yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what about, tell me a little bit more about your meditation practice. That's something I do in the mornings as well, but I know you are a whiz with meditation. So have you got any recommendations that you could share with us?
Well, you know, when I first started meditating, which is probably about 8 years ago, I used to literally go on whatever I was feeling that day. So if I was feeling stressed or I felt I needed confidence, whatever it was, I would go onto YouTube, type it in, and do a meditation. And honestly, 10, 15 minutes, my brain was all over the place, I couldn't focus, but it took time. But what I will say to people is consistency is key, and it's okay for your mind to wander. This is about bringing yourself back to a place of feeling centered. I will also go as far as to say that meditation for me isn't always listening to something on YouTube. I find things that bring me peace. So cooking is something that I consider a meditation because I'm in a place of bliss. So meditation doesn't have to be, you know, sitting with your legs crossed. It doesn't have to be that. It's whatever you resonate with, and that brings you that element of balance and kind of just peace to reset yourself.
Absolutely. I agree. And if there's a tip that I can give, I would definitely recommend, even if it's just 5 minutes that you start with and see how you go with that, and then adding another few minutes on and then get to 10 minutes and then taking it forth. Just having that moment to yourself without distractions, without interruptions, then you can go forward. And it doesn't even need to be sitting in silence or, you know, sitting with your legs crossed, as Marcia said. It can just be, you know, that song or that thing that you like to do, but that is your meditation time. And then you come out of that and then you can connect with everyone else. But it's important to connect with
You.
yourself first
100%.
and know what you want. So please, this has been a fantastic conversation. We are almost at the hour mark. And as the purpose coach, I would love for you to share a little bit about, you know, you finding your purpose and maybe one tip that you can give to somebody who might be listening or watching. Maybe they feel lost, maybe they feel agitated, maybe they just don't have a clue what is going on during this pandemic. How can you shed some light on your purpose and maybe give a tip on how somebody could go in the direction of finding theirs?
Okay, so well, first of all, I would say that we don't have to do life alone. Okay, you know, if you're feeling like that, please reach out to somebody. You know, myself, whoever, just reach out. Don't sit there and suffer in silence. I certainly did that, and it didn't get me anywhere. So, you know, now I have learnt to ask for help, because there's a help out there. Number two, I would say that just spend less time worrying about what people think and more time on what it is that matters to you. And as Kai and I have said and talked about, you know, just putting yourself first is really the first step to finding what truly is going to make you tick and finding your purpose. So just not taking on board other people's opinions, because they actually don't matter. What matters is what makes you happy.
Absolutely. Well, that is fantastic. And I must say, we haven't started the podcast again, guys, but we had a podcast going that we started off the back of our group in the pandemic. Both of us having these tips for ourselves, we wanted to share with many others, and we started a WhatsApp group that was supporting about 50 to 60 people during the beginning stages of lockdown. And then we started a podcast talking about mental health and just expressing how we feel. We paused that just at the end of last year, but this has made me excited. I think we need to get back on the podcast and maybe do it visually just like this, because this has been great. And I like seeing you and not just hearing you in my headphones. And having this chat. We're so serious now, but honestly, when we have our conversations, we're always cackling down the phone. There were a couple of comments here. So Zadani, hey, how are you? I don't know where you are from, but you said yes, indeed. Bible verse and journal helped a lot. You also like walking. Yes, walking is great, actually, very therapeutic.
Nice.
I do that with the challenge that I'm on for 250,000 steps this month, and I'm almost there. Aisha, you've also reached out and said, I love that tip. We have to hold ourselves accountable. Yes, we definitely do, because nobody else is in charge of your life. It's you. It's all down to you. So Marcia, please tell our viewers and listeners where they can find you, and what they need to look out for next.
Okay, so you can find me on Instagram at being Marcia McLeod, where you'll find daily inspiration and you'll get to see what's going on in and around my world behind the scenes. You can also hop over to my website, which is marciamcleod.com, where I have my blogs that I write, and I will also post whatever's going on in my world, if there's any speaking events or anything that I'm hosting at that time. I also do have a book that will be coming out very, very shortly, so please keep your ears and eyes peeled, and as well as the online course we'll be launching. So please follow, reach out. If there's anything that I can do to support, I'm only a message away.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been amazing speaking to you. For those of you listening, thank you for tuning in, and a couple of the recent viewers who were here last week, welcome back. I've got another exciting guest who's going to be joining us, but I will be announcing that on Instagram tomorrow, so you have to stay tuned and peeled on the feed to find out who that is. And I'm here to help and empower women to feel the best version of themselves and chase after what it is that they want. Much like Marcia, I've definitely learn and overcome many of my own self-doubt and challenges, insecurities, and I'm here for 4 years. Marcia's been here for 21 years, and the journey and the growth has been incredible. So you can do it too. My course will also be out very, very shortly, and I will post some more information in the caption below. So thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week for Conversations with Kai, with another guest sharing their journey to inspire you to take yours to the next level. We will see you again soon, and thank you, Marcia, for being with us.
Thank you. It's been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Great chat, guys. Take care.
Bye.
Have a fantastic day. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.